the Sheikh's forbidden wife. In a kingdom ruled by tradition and shadowed by secrets, Amara, a foreign woman, becomes the Sheikh's forbidden wife, locked in a golden cage, yet igniting an obsession that defies bloodlines and ancient laws. As political conspiracies, rebellion, and deadly betrayals threaten to tear them apart, Amara and Sheikh Kahlil must fight for their love and their kingdom. Bound by passion and courage, they navigate a treacherous path where every alliance could be a lie and every whispered promise hides a dagger. Will their love survive the desert's ruthless trials and become the heart of a new era? The Sheikh's forbidden wife is a sweeping Harlequin-style romance full of drama, intrigue, softened sensuality, and unforgettable passion. Main characters: Amara Al-Nahil, the brave and determined foreign wife of the Sheikh, fighting for love and justice. Sheikh Kahlil Al-Nahil, the powerful and complex desert ruler, obsessed with Amara and protective of his kingdom. Layali Al-Farid, the cunning and ruthless antagonist, the Sheikh's cousin, scheming to destroy Amara and seize power. Idris, loyal confidant and strategic advisor to the Sheikh, a close ally of Amara. Saga, the devoted servant and friend who aids Amara in critical moments. The merchant, Al-Mutajir, the mysterious merchant allied with Layali, financing her plots. The contract of chains. The desert sun beat down on the horizon like molten gold, casting long shadows across the palace of Zahrat al-Rimal. It stood tall and blindingly white against the dunes, a vision of opulence and silent secrets. To the world, it was a jewel in the crown of the Middle East, but for Amara Leclerc, it would soon become her gilded prison. She was used to simplicity. Raised in the quaint streets of southern France, Amara had spent her life between books and flower stalls, dreaming of love that came slowly and touched deeply. Never had she imagined she'd be flown across the world to marry a stranger, a sheikh no less, as payment for a debt she never created. "I can't do this, Mother," she whispered, gripping the edge of the seat in the private jet. Her knuckles were white. "You must," her mother said softly, guilt in her eyes. "It's the only way to save our family. You'll be safe. He's royalty. You'll be cared for." Safe, cared for, but never loved. Amara had read enough to know what arranged marriages looked like, and Sheikh Kahlil Al-Zahir wasn't a fairy tale prince. Rumours painted him as ruthless, a man with a heart as cold as the desert nights and eyes sharp enough to slice steel. And yet, she had no choice. When she stepped out of the jet, the heat stole her breath, but not as much as the man waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He was taller than she expected. Dressed in traditional black robes that contrasted with the golden desert behind him, Sheikh Kahlil exuded silent power. His face was all sharp planes and mystery, his skin sun-bronzed, and his jaw tight, as if carved from stone. His eyes, oh God, his eyes, were dark as obsidian and utterly unreadable. Amara felt like prey the moment their gazes met. "You are Amara Leclerc," he said, voice deep and steady, with a slight French accent that startled her. "I am." There will be no ceremony, no wedding dress, just a signature. Her heart pounded. "You don't believe in vows?" "I don't believe in lies." His answer stung more than she expected. But still, she followed him into the waiting car like a silent lamb. The palace was a breathtaking blend of gold and marble, silk and secrets. As she walked through the halls, Amara felt the weight of every woman who had walked here before her. Concubines, mistresses, wives in name only. She wondered which one she would become. That night, the contract was laid before her. Her hands trembled as she signed it, not because of fear, but because of the finality. With a single stroke, she became his. "I won't touch you," Kahlil said as he poured himself a drink. "Not unless you beg me to." The air left her lungs. She turned to him slowly. "Why would I?" A slow smirk touched his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because eventually, you will." That night, Amara lay in a bed carved from ivory, the sheets soft as whispers. But sleep didn't come. Her mind replayed his words over and over, and her skin burned with a strange, unwanted anticipation. Was this desire? Or was it fear? Meanwhile, across the palace, Sheikh Kahlil stared into the night. He hadn't planned for this. The contract had been a move of strategy, a repayment of a debt owed to his late father by Amara's family, nothing more. Yet when he saw her, that fire in her eyes, the defiance in her silence, something shifted inside him. She was not like the others, and that made her dangerous. He would own her, but he could never afford to love her. Not when his heart was already buried beneath layers of betrayal, and not when the truth of her father's treachery still haunted his bloodline. She would stay in the golden cage he built, adorned, protected, and untouchable. At least, that had been the plan. A cage lined with silk. Amara's second day in Zahrat al-Rimal began with silence. No maid spoke to her, no greetings. Just gestures and nods, always respectful, always distant. It was as if she were a fragile ornament no one dared touch, or perhaps a ticking bomb no one wanted to ignite. Breakfast was served in a private courtyard blooming with white jasmine. A gold-plated tray of fresh dates, spiced tea, and bread still steaming. But her appetite was gone. She stared at the fountain in the centre, water cascading gently over a sculpture of a lion and a dove. Strength and vulnerability, domination and surrender. An apt metaphor, perhaps, for the man who now held her fate. "You're awake early." Kahlil's voice made her flinch. She hadn't heard him arrive. He wore a white robe this time, with intricate silver embroidery, and his presence darkened the sunlight. He moved with the quiet grace of a predator, silent, controlled, endlessly aware. "I couldn't sleep," Amara admitted. "You'll adjust. The palace can be overwhelming at first." She sipped her tea to avoid answering, then dared, "Do your other wives adjust too?" His gaze sharpened. "I have no other wives." "Oh." The silence grew heavy. "You're surprised?" "I suppose I am. A man like you, I assumed that I collect women like jewels." She said nothing. He sat across from her, his fingers drumming softly against the table. "I don't believe in collecting what I do not value, and value must be earned." Her jaw clenched. "So I must earn the right to be seen as more than a debt." He leaned in, eyes unreadable. "You already are more. That's the problem." Before she could respond, he stood and left, just like that, vanishing into the morning haze, leaving behind the scent of oud and the echo of confusion. Later that day, Amara wandered the palace alone. Every corridor was a painting, every room a story. She found a library larger than any she'd ever seen, with shelves reaching the ceiling and ladders on rails, books in Arabic, French, English, even ancient poetry written by hand on parchment. She pulled one at random, the title in French, Captive Hearts. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Do you read poetry?" The voice startled her. Not Kahlil, another man. He was younger, perhaps early 30s, with kind hazel eyes and a scar above his brow. Western suit, sharp jaw. He bowed slightly. "I'm Idris," he said, "advisor to the Sheikh." She offered a wary nod. "Amara?" "I know. Everyone knows who you are now." She blinked. "That's not comforting." He chuckled softly. "Don't worry. The staff speak in whispers, but none dare cross him." "And what about you?" she asked. "Do you cross him?" "I have. Once." "What happened?" "I was sent to London for 2 years." She couldn't tell if he was joking, but his smile told her enough. "I assume he doesn't tell you much," Idris added carefully. "About why he chose you?" "No," she said bitterly. "Only that I'm part of a contract. Property, not a bride." Idris hesitated. "Be careful, Amara. He's not a cruel man, but he is wounded." "Wounded?" "Some scars run deep. Some kings wear crowns to hide chains." She didn't understand it then, but she would. That night, Kahlil summoned her to the observatory. It was high above the palace, open to the stars. Lanterns hung from carved arches, casting golden light over silk cushions and a low marble table set with wine. Amara paused at the threshold, her heart hammering. She wore a flowing dress of indigo silk, chosen by one of the silent maids, modest yet sensual in the way it hugged her waist and whispered around her legs. "You came," he said simply. "I didn't think I had a choice." He poured wine into 2 crystal glasses. "There's always a choice, but not always a path back." She stepped forward. "What do you want from me?" He handed her the glass. Their fingers brushed. Fire. She stepped back, unsettled. "I want you to understand something," he said. "I didn't choose this marriage out of duty alone. I chose you because I don't trust anyone else in my world, and yet, I don't trust you either." Her breath caught. "Then why keep me here?" His eyes were darker than night. "Because I need someone to betray me to know who my enemies are." Her heart dropped. "You think I'll betray you?" "I think you might. Everyone does eventually." She set down her glass. "You brought me here to be your spy bait?" "No," he said quietly. "I brought you here because you were the only one who didn't beg for this." Tears stung the back of her eyes, not from sadness, but fury. "And that makes me what? Pure? That makes you real." He moved closer. His hand rose, slowly, and for a moment she thought he might touch her cheek. But he stopped himself. Instead, he turned away. "Go, before I forget that I promised not to touch you." Amara fled before her knees gave way. In the shadows above, someone watched. A figure hidden beyond the latticed wall of the observatory. Slender hands clutched an ivory pendant. Jealous eyes glinted with malice. "She doesn't belong here," the voice whispered. "She will destroy everything." And in the hush of the desert wind, fate stirred. The forbidden wife had entered the palace, but not everyone welcomed her, and not everyone planned to let her stay. The snake beneath the silk. The morning after the observatory encounter, Amara woke to find her bedroom transformed. A cascade of deep red roses now framed the mirror. A box of fine perfume sat on the vanity, and atop the bed was a note in sharp calligraphic script. "Wear this tonight, you'll dine with me." K. Beneath the note lay a gown unlike anything she'd ever touched. Midnight blue, with hand-stitched silver threads in the shape of a phoenix in flight. Exquisite. Intimidating. A symbol of rebirth, or a warning. She pressed the fabric to her chest, a shiver rising. Why now? What had changed? Was he trying to tame her? Or test her? Amara stepped into the dining hall with the quiet poise of a woman balancing on a blade. Her gown shimmered like moonlight. Her hair was braided and adorned with sapphire pins. Every detail had been planned to perfection, not by her but by a man who knew how to control a room from shadows. Kahlil was already waiting. He didn't rise when she entered. Didn't need to. His presence was enough to command the moment. Dressed in tailored charcoal with a silver pin at his collar, he looked less like a desert prince and more like a king from some ancient empire. "You look..." He paused, expression unreadable. "Predictably defiant." She smirked. Disappointed? Not at all. Dinner was a blur of flavours. Saffron rice, lamb glazed in honey, mint tea so fresh it burned her lips. But the tension was more intoxicating than any spice. "Have you made friends here?" he asked, his tone deceptively casual. "I've met Idris." Kahlil's eyes narrowed slightly. "He's been kind," Amara added. "He's loyal, mostly. To you?" "To the truth." That answer sat between them like a loaded weapon. Amara leaned forward. "Tell me something, Kahlil. If you don't trust anyone, how do you sleep at night?" "I don't," he said without hesitation. After dinner, he walked her back to her wing, a gesture that felt strangely intimate, No guards, no aides, just the two of them, their footsteps echoing through marble and gold. At her door, he stopped. "You have questions," he said, studying her. "Too many." "Then ask one." She hesitated. "Why me? The truth this time." He didn't blink. "Because your father ruined mine." The words hit her like a slap. "What?" "Your father once betrayed my father during an oil negotiation 20 years ago. Because of him, thousands in Zarat al-Rimal lost their livelihoods. My people paid the price. My family fractured." Amara's voice trembled. "My father is dead. So is mine." They stood in silence. "You hate me," she whispered. "No, I hate what you represent." A pause. "And yet, I cannot stop watching you." Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared into the shadows. The palace felt colder that night. Even wrapped in silk sheets, Amara's body couldn't find warmth. Her dreams twisted with images of burning oil fields, of children crying, of a man bleeding from the chest as the desert swallowed him whole. She woke in sweat, only to find a figure sitting in the dark corner of her room. Her scream caught in her throat, until the figure stood stepping into moonlight. A woman, tall, elegant, dressed in gold. "I didn't mean to startle you," she said, her voice sweet and low. "Who are you?" Amara asked, breathless. "I am Layali, the Sheikh's cousin." Amara wrapped the robe around her tighter. "You came into my room uninvited." Layali smiled. "This is not your room. Nothing here belongs to you." A chill spread through Amara's limbs. "Is that a threat?" "A truth," Layali said smoothly. "You may have married him, but he is not yours. He never will be. Do you think he chose you because he wanted a wife? No, darling. He chose you to punish a ghost. You are a shadow of retribution. Nothing more." Amara's spine stiffened. "Then why are you here?" "To remind you," Layali said, stepping closer, "that cages can be velvet, but they're cages all the same, and sometimes they tighten when you least expect it." With a smile that didn't reach her eyes, Layali left. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, chest heaving. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but fury. She had come here unwilling. She had tried to remain invisible. But now she understood the battlefield she had entered, and she would not fall quietly. Not in this palace, not in this war. Poisoned smiles and hidden blades. Days passed, each one layered with velvet luxury and veiled hostility. Amara found herself caught in a gilded web, silk gowns, royal dinners, and silence thick with unspoken truths. She was introduced to palace etiquette, escorted through ancient gardens, and placed under the watchful eye of a new servant, Sarah, a quiet girl with soft hands and haunted eyes. She spoke little, but Amara felt a strange pull toward her. "She was born in the servants' wing," Idris explained one afternoon as they walked near the reflecting pool. "Raised here, loyal, but not blind." Amara glanced towards Sarah, who stood at a polite distance. "She looks sad." Idris nodded. "Most of the women here are. The palace has that effect." Amara turned toward him. "What about you, Idris? Are you sad too?" He hesitated. "I was. Until you arrived." The air shifted. Amara looked away quickly, her pulse racing. She knew Idris meant no harm. But she also knew any closeness between them would become a weapon in someone else's hands, just like everything else here. That night, she joined Kahlil for tea in the moon garden, a space filled with white orchids and night-blooming jasmine. A breeze lifted her hair, and she wrapped the thin shawl around her shoulders. "You don't sleep much," she said softly. He poured her tea. "Sleep is for men with peace." "And you have none?" He offered a tight smile. "I was raised in a palace where kindness was weakness and emotion, a liability. Do you think peace is bred in such a place?" She sipped slowly. "I think peace is a choice. You just haven't made it yet." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a moment she saw something flicker behind his eyes. Longing, regret, but just as quickly it vanished. "You're clever," he murmured. "That's dangerous." "No, just honest. Honesty is the most dangerous thing of all." He stood. "Walk with me." They strolled through winding paths of white marble, the moonlight painting shadows across their faces. Kahlil's robe moved like water as he walked beside her, always careful to keep a respectful distance, yet the tension between them pulsed with quiet heat. "Why me?" she asked again, more gently this time. "You had dozens of choices, princesses, heiresses. I didn't want someone trained to obey. I wanted someone who would challenge me, someone real." Amara's breath caught. "Then why push me away?" "Because if I touch you," he said, voice low and raw, "I won't stop." The honesty in his words struck deep. She felt it vibrate in her chest, an unspoken hunger they both refused to name. But before she could respond, a figure stepped from the shadows. "Forgive me, cousin," Layali said, her tone as sweet as sugar gone sour. "I didn't know you had company." Kahlil's jaw tensed. "We're walking. Of course. It's just, there's been a matter with the foreign accounts. I'll speak to Idris. He's not available. Convenient, no?" Amara's stomach twisted. Layali's eyes turned to her, gleaming. "You must be very persuasive, dear. The Sheikh rarely entertains in this garden." Kahlil stepped forward. "That's enough." Layali bowed slightly. "Of course, I meant no disrespect." She vanished like smoke. Amara exhaled shakily. "She hates me." "She envies you," Kahlil corrected. She was raised to think the crown might one day fall to her bloodline. "But she forgets, my throne is not hers to covet." "Then why allow her to stay?" "Because sometimes it's safer to keep a cobra close where you can see its fangs." Later that evening, as Amara returned to her chambers, she found Sahra waiting by the door. "There's something you need to see," the girl whispered. They moved silently through back corridors, into an unused wing cloaked in dust and silence. Sahra opened a door, revealing a room filled with ancient documents and sealed files. She handed Amara an old ledger, its leather cover cracked with age. Amara opened it and froze. Names, signatures, a contract, her father's name, and beneath it, a forged clause. "He never signed this," Amara whispered. "This isn't his handwriting." Sahra nodded. "I think someone altered the deal, after both men were dead." "Why?" "To justify this marriage, to give Kahlil a reason." Amara's blood went cold. Everything, her kidnapping, her contract, the anger in Kahlil's eyes, it was all built on a lie. She looked at Sahra. "Why show me this?" "Because I lost a sister in that oil war," Sahra said softly. "And I know when justice becomes revenge. You deserve the truth." Amara's hands shook as she closed the book. She wasn't just a pawn, she was a prisoner of a lie, and now she knew too much. A truth buried beneath sand. The storm that began in that forgotten archive didn't rage out loud. It brewed quietly, beneath Amara's skin, in her bloodstream, in her breath. By morning she looked the same, regal, composed, dressed in ivory silk, but her heart thudded like a war drum. Every time she caught sight of Kahlil's guards, or heard Layali's false laughter from a corridor, the truth clawed at her throat. The contract was a lie. Her father hadn't betrayed Kahlil's. Someone had forged history, and someone very close to power had used her as a tool to ignite old hatred. But who? And worse, why? Kahlil found her later in the garden, the same place they'd shared tea under the moonlight. This time, the jasmine didn't smell sweet. It stung her senses. "You're quiet," he said, watching her from beneath the archway. "I'm always quiet," she replied flatly. "No, you're watchful. It's different." She turned to face him. Tell me about the contract again, the one my father allegedly signed. Kahlil's eyes darkened. Why? Because I want to know exactly what you believe he did. He crossed his arms. Your father entered into a private agreement with mine to co-develop drilling rights on a disputed region of desert land. Your side took the oil, left mine with poisoned wells and debt. And who told you that? He frowned. It was confirmed by our lawyers. The contract was authenticated. Show me. Kahlil blinked. What? Show me the original contract, not the copy, the original document. I want to see it for myself. His jaw tensed. Why? Because I think you've been lied to, Kahlil. Just like me. For a heartbeat, the desert wind died. Then he turned sharply and walked away. Amara found Idris 2 hours later in the war room, bent over maps of a proposed pipeline expansion. Why didn't you tell me about the forged clause? She demanded. He looked up, eyes wide. You found it? Sarah showed me. You knew. I suspected. He ran a hand through his hair. But suspicion in this palace is like dancing with daggers. One wrong move. Someone forged it to manipulate Kahlil. Who benefits? He hesitated. Someone who wants to control him through anger. Someone who needs him isolated. Layali. She's not stupid enough to sign a forgery, but she might have planted it, or convinced someone else to. And what about you? Amara asked quietly. Whose side are you on? His gaze softened. Yours. That night, Kahlil sent for her. She expected fury. She expected guards, chains even. But when she entered his private chambers, she found him sitting alone on a cushioned bench, holding a worn leather scroll in his hands. The original, he said. He handed it to her in silence. She sat beside him, their shoulders barely touching. The parchment smelled of oil and dust. Her fingers traced the signature. It was clear, distinct, wrong. This isn't my father's hand, she whispered. He said nothing. I used to forge his signature when I was 12, she added. I know every curve, every pressure point. This is clumsy. His voice was hoarse. Why would someone do this? To give you a reason to hate me, to justify marrying me, to control you. Kahlil stared ahead. I built my life on this, he whispered. My fury, my mission, my vengeance. And it was sand. She reached out, instinct, not thought, and laid a hand over his. For a moment, he didn't move. Then slowly, he turned his hand beneath hers and laced their fingers. I'm sorry, he said, so quietly she almost didn't hear it. Amara blinked. The desert prince, apologizing. Her heart twisted. But peace was never meant to last in palaces built on secrets. The next morning, Sarah was gone. Her room had been stripped. No trace of her remained. Amara stormed into Kahlil's office. Where is she? He stood slowly. What are you talking about? Sarah, the maid who showed me the contract. She's missing. Kahlil's eyes darkened. I gave no order. Then someone else did. He reached for the phone, issuing rapid commands in Arabic. Amara paced, panic rising. An hour later, the guards returned, with nothing. No one saw her leave, Idris said grimly. No record, no traces. Kahlil slammed his fist into the desk. Someone's sending a message. To me, Amara whispered. To remind me I'm just a guest here, not safe, not protected. He turned to her. You are protected. I swear it. You swore I wouldn't be touched, but people near me are disappearing. He crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed her shoulders, not rough, but firm. Then stay close to me. Don't go anywhere alone. From now on, you're under my protection. Always. Her voice cracked. Even if it makes you weak in front of them. He looked her dead in the eyes. I would burn this palace to the ground before I let them touch you. She stared at him, breath trembling. There was something in his voice. Not anger, not pride, desperation. She wasn't just a pawn to him anymore. She was a fire he could not extinguish. And maybe he didn't want to. Flames behind the veil. The palace changed after Sarah disappeared. The smiles grew colder, the guards more watchful, the whispers louder behind closed doors. Amara no longer felt like a guest, or even a prisoner. She felt like a threat. And Kahlil? He was different too, still composed, still powerful. But now, every time she entered a room, his gaze followed her with the intensity of a man torn between desire and danger. There were no more casual glances, no more careful silences. Something had shifted between them, something irreversible. One afternoon, Amara stood before a gilded mirror, trying to fix the clasp of a sapphire necklace left anonymously on her bed. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but something deeper: hunger, uncertainty. The door opened behind her. No knock. Kahlil. He didn't speak, just watched her from the threshold, his dark eyes trailing the bare skin of her shoulders. "I didn't ask for gifts," she said without turning. "You didn't need to," he replied. She met his gaze in the mirror. "What do you want from me?" He stepped closer, slow, deliberate, until she could feel the heat of his breath against her neck. "Everything," he whispered. Her breath caught. "I want the fire in your eyes when you challenge me. I want the softness in your voice when you speak truths no one else dares say. I want the part of you that refuses to belong to anyone, and still ends up belonging to me." She turned, heart hammering. "You said you wouldn't touch me." His jaw clenched. "And I meant it. But I'm not a man of ice, Amara. I am flesh. And fire." He stepped back before she could respond. "Dinner, tonight. My private wing." Then he was gone. Amara spent the rest of the day trying not to think about the way his voice had wrapped around her name, or how her body had betrayed her with every throb of awareness. She shouldn't feel this. He had used her, trapped her, dragged her into a world of politics, pain and danger. And yet, he'd also protected her, believed her, trusted her when she had no one. She had come to this country a prisoner. Now she didn't know what she was anymore. That evening, when she entered his private wing, it was like stepping into a different world. Soft lanterns lit the walls, music played faintly from an oud. The scent of sandalwood lingered in the air. A table had been set by the balcony, overlooking the dunes glowing under moonlight. Kahlil stood beside it, no robe this time. He wore black slacks, a linen shirt unbuttoned at the throat, sleeves rolled up. Too intimate, too exposed. She swallowed. "No guards?" "No danger," he said simply. They dined in quiet harmony. No politics, no past. Just the clinking of silver and the low hum of the desert beyond. When the meal was done, he offered his hand. "Come with me." She hesitated, then took it. He led her to a secluded part of the suite, where a mosaic-tiled fountain glimmered under candlelight. Cushions lined the marble floor, privacy wrapped around them like silk. Kahlil sat, his hand still holding hers. "I don't know how to be soft," he said. "No one ever taught me." Amara sat beside him. "And yet you've protected me. That's softness. I've been cruel too. You were angry, now you're awake." He turned to her, so close she could feel the energy crackle between them. "I'm tired of resisting this." He leaned in, slow, asking, not taking. She didn't pull away. When their lips met, it wasn't explosive. It was surrender. Soft, controlled, deep. But behind that kiss was everything unsaid. Grief, passion, guilt, hunger. She tangled her fingers in his hair. He pulled her closer with reverence, not force. When they parted, their foreheads pressed together, breath mingling. "This changes everything," he whispered. "No," she said. "This reveals what was already there." He kissed her again. deeper this time, fiercer, as if trying to brand her into his soul. And for that night, they were not enemies, not royalty and prisoner. They were just man and woman, craving, breaking, needing. Far across the palace, Layali stood at a tall window, watching the lights dim one by one in Kahlil's private wing. Her eyes burned. Her grip on the goblet of wine tightened until it cracked. "She's playing with fire," she muttered. Behind her, a shadowed figure stepped forward. "We're ready. One signal and everything falls." Layali turned slowly, her lips curling, then let her fall first. Love in the shadows, envy in the light. Morning came like a thief, stealing away the warmth of the night before. The sheet still held his scent, amber and desert spice, but the man himself was gone. Amara sat up slowly, heart still tangled in the storm of what they had shared. Her body ached in ways it hadn't before, not from pain, but from the softness of surrender. The memory of his lips on her skin still pulsed through her veins. But it wasn't just desire that lingered, it was danger. The intimacy had stripped them both of something, and now the palace would come for its price. Kahlil was already in the council chamber by the time she entered the hallway. He hadn't left a note, no message, back to business, back to ice. But Amara wasn't a fool. He was distancing himself to protect her, or to protect himself. In the shadows behind her, someone watched. Layali. Later, Amara walked through the palace gardens, letting the sun warm her skin. Every leaf shimmered with secrets. Every bird call felt like a warning, and though she was alone, she didn't feel alone. She never was. Not anymore. She found Idris near the stables, speaking in hushed tones with one of the guards. His face brightened when he saw her. "You're avoiding everyone," he said gently. "I'm being cautious," she corrected. He frowned. "That's not your nature. It has to be now." They walked together along the sand path. "I know about Sarah," he said quietly. "There are rumours she was seen in the western markets, alive." Amara stopped in her tracks. "What?" "I can't confirm it, but I'm trying." Hope fluttered in her chest. Fragile, dangerous. Who would hide her? Idris hesitated. Someone who fears what she knows. "Then we need to find her, before they do." He nodded. "You should be careful, Amara. There are whispers that Layali is planning something." "I know," she said, voice steady. "Let her come." But beneath her calm, her heart pounded. That evening, Kahlil didn't summon her. He didn't visit. He didn't speak. Amara waited until midnight before moving through the secret corridors she'd come to memorize. The walls of this palace had ears, but they also had holes, hidden doors, forgotten stairwells. She found him alone in the prayer chamber, kneeling beneath a stained glass dome, bathed in coloured moonlight. His hands were clenched, his eyes closed. He didn't look up when she entered. "You regret it," she said softly. He opened his eyes, but not his mouth. "That night changed something," she went on. "For me. I won't lie about that. But I won't be a secret, Kahlil. I won't be something you taste and then bury." He rose slowly, like a man carrying 1,000 years on his back. "You don't understand," he said hoarsely. "If they know what you mean to me, they'll use it. They'll use you." "They already are." He turned away. "I'm not afraid of them," she said. "I am," he replied, voice barely a whisper. "Not for myself. For you." She stepped forward, reaching for his face. "You don't get to choose my fear." Their eyes locked. He leaned in, forehead pressed to hers. "I would give up my crown to keep you safe." "Then give up your silence instead." And again their lips met. But this kiss wasn't soft. It was raw, desperate. A collision of love and fury and surrender. Sheikh and wife, man and woman. bound not by contract anymore, but by something deeper, undeniable. The next morning, the palace woke to an explosion, not a literal one, a scandal, photos, whispers. Someone had leaked images of Amara and Kahlil in the garden, in the observatory, in each other's arms. The press labelled her the foreign mistress, the Western distraction. The council erupted. Layali smiled. Kahlil shattered a crystal glass in his hand. Amara stood before the throne, head held high, as royal advisers shouted in Arabic, threatening disgrace, calling for annulment, banishment, exile. Kahlil rose slowly. "The woman you insult," he said, voice cold and thunderous, "is not my mistress. She is my wife." The room fell silent. And from this day forward, she will no longer be kept in the shadows. He reached for Amara's hand, and for the first time, in public, their fingers entwined, gasps, outrage, awe, a declaration that could not be undone. But far in the back of the chamber, Layali watched, eyes narrowed, and whispered to the man beside her, "Then let him burn with her." A throne, shaken, a heart exposed. The declaration echoed far beyond the marble walls of the palace. "I will no longer hide my wife." The words had lit a fire, one that could no longer be contained. The royal court was in disarray. Ministers called emergency meetings. Foreign dignitaries whispered about betrayal, scandal, and madness. The news outlets plastered Amara's face on every screen from Dubai to Paris. The Sheikh's shameful bride, the Western flame that burns the throne. But inside the golden cage, where secrets had always festered in silence, a new kind of storm began to rage. This one had a name. Layali. Amara stood at the window of her new quarters, no longer tucked away in the forgotten wing, but now adjoining the Sheikh's, a public symbol of her elevated position. But elevation came with a price. She hadn't seen Kahlil in 2 days, not since the announcement. He had vanished into a whirlwind of political fires, locked in meetings, trying to pacify furious council members, rebellious tribes, and his own wounded pride. She understood it, but it didn't mean it didn't hurt. She was alone again, a queen in name, an interloper in the eyes of many, a woman hanging between love and war. A soft knock broke the silence. She turned. Layali entered without waiting for permission. She wore white, silk, innocence, deception disguised as grace. Her voice, calm and low, carried venom wrapped in silk. "You must be proud, so bold, so fearless. You've destroyed centuries of tradition in one kiss." Amara didn't flinch. "I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped hiding." Layali smiled faintly. "Do you think that makes you brave?" "I think it makes me free." "You're not free," Layali whispered, stepping closer. "You're his weakness, and this palace devours weakness." Amara's voice remained steady. "You think love is a weakness?" "I know it is, and so does he." A pause. Then, "Did you know," Layali said softly, "that Kahlil once promised to marry me?" Amara's breath caught. He was 17. I was 16. Our families had already begun the preparations. We were raised with that certainty. I was meant to stand at his side, not in your place. "And yet here you are," Amara replied coldly. "In mine." Layali's smile faltered, just for a moment. "He will regret this." "I don't think he will." "Then you don't know him as well as you think." With that, she turned and left, the door closing behind her like a final warning. That night, Amara ventured into the royal library, searching for solitude. But the silence was shattered by voices in the shadows. She froze behind a pillar. Layali again, speaking to someone, a man. "You have the documents?" Layali whispered. "Yes, copies of the marriage contract, and something else." "What?" "A letter, written by his father, about her, about why she can never be queen." Amara's heart dropped. "You deliver that to the High Tribunal," Layali said, "and I'll handle the rest." Footsteps, silence. Amara waited until they were gone before stepping out, blood pounding in her ears. A letter, a secret, a weapon. The next morning, Kahlil finally returned to her. He looked exhausted, rumpled, still beautiful, but burdened. "I've missed you," he said, touching her hand gently. She pulled it away. "You left me alone to drown in this mess." "I was trying to fix it." "We can't fix something we won't face together." His jaw clenched. "The council wants to annul the marriage. They say the ceremony was void due to tribal law, that you're not of the bloodline, that the contract is invalid. Because of a letter." His eyes snapped to hers. She knew. "Who told you?" "I heard Layali." He swore under his breath. "That letter was never meant to be found. It was written by my father during his final illness. He had doubts about my succession, about everything." "Does it matter now?" "Yes, because they'll use it to strip me of everything, not just you." She stepped closer. "Then we fight, together." His eyes softened. "I wanted to protect you." "Don't," she whispered. "Love me instead." In the days that followed, the palace became a battlefield. Layali fed rumours like oil to a fire. Photos, letters, legal loopholes. And through it all, Amara stood tall, attending diplomatic dinners, speaking Arabic in public, holding Kahlil's arm with quiet pride. She made herself visible, irrefutable. She would not vanish again. But the final blow came quietly. A royal summons, a tribunal, and a trial. The Royal Court of Elders demanded their presence, an official hearing, a challenge to the legitimacy of their union. Kahlil stared at the summons, rage simmering in his bones. "They want to humiliate you," he said. "They want to make an example of us." "Then let them look into our eyes and see what love truly looks like." He kissed her, slow and deep, a promise pressed into her soul. "Then we'll face them," he said, as one. But in the corner of the courtyard, Layali stood watching, and for the first time, she was not smiling. She was plotting something darker, something final. The Tribunal of Shadows. The day dawned heavy with dread. The sun rose, but the warmth refused to reach Amara's skin. The palace, once golden and filled with fragrant stillness, now felt like a cage of eyes and whispers. Servants moved stiffly, too careful. Guards shifted with nerves in their posture. Everyone knew what was coming. The Majlis al-Sheikh, the royal tribunal, had not convened in over a decade. Today it would sit in judgment over Amara, over love, over a marriage that dared to challenge bloodlines, borders, and centuries of law. Inside the grand chamber, all was carved elegance, onyx floors, tall stained glass windows, and ancient stone arches that had watched kings rise and fall. 12 elders sat in a semicircle, their robes dark as desert nights. In the centre, on a dais of carved marble, Kahlil and Amara stood hand in hand. He wore ceremonial robes of crimson and black, his expression unreadable. She wore ivory silk, her eyes fierce with silent defiance. A clerk read the charges in Arabic. Violation of tribal lineage in royal union, usurpation of traditional betrothal rights, concealment of non-sanctioned marriage, disruption of royal succession. Each word stabbed deeper. Each word painted her as an intruder, a fraud, a danger. Layali sat at the far side of the chamber, veiled in white, face pale, lips slightly curled. She had done this. She had awakened every ancient fear the council harboured, but she wasn't finished. When the letter was introduced as evidence, gasps echoed. The letter was written in the late Sheikh's trembling hand. It spoke of concern. It questioned whether a foreign bride, especially one of unknown lineage, could ever be truly accepted by the people. It warned of political fracture, and it ended with a single chilling line. Should my son choose such a woman, he must bear the cost of disinheritance. Amara held her breath. Kahlil stood straighter. He was ill, Kahlil said firmly, his voice steady. He wrote this while under sedation, racked with fever. My father never changed the succession. He gave me the ring of lineage on his deathbed. An elder lifted a hand. But he questioned your wife. Many questioned my mother too. She was not of the tribes either. A pause. She was Egyptian, Kahlil added, but he loved her, as I love Amara. Silence fell. It was the first time he had said it aloud, in front of his people. Layali's eyes narrowed. Amara's fingers tightened around his. Another elder spoke. Love is not law. No, Kahlil replied, but it is power. The kind of power that has built this kingdom. I have never ruled more clearly than I do now, with her at my side. The tribunal retired to deliberate. Hours passed. Amara and Kahlil waited in a private chamber, guarded on all sides. I feel like I'm on trial for simply existing, she said softly. You're on trial for mattering too much, he whispered. That's the real threat you pose. You changed me. And do you regret it? He turned to her, voice low, eyes burning. I regret not finding you sooner. They were summoned again. The elders returned with solemn expressions. The High Elder stood. It is the judgment of this council, he began, that the marriage was not performed under recognized tribal custom. However, due to the absence of a direct succession challenge, and in light of the current Sheikh's authority, Amara held her breath. We will not annul the marriage. A collective gasp. Even Layali's posture faltered. But, the elder continued, we place the continuation of this union under probationary recognition. You have 1 year to solidify acceptance among the tribal leadership. Failure to do so will result in a vote to remove your authority and your position. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't defeat. It was exile with a timer, a throne made of sand, a love that would have to earn its place day by day. That night, the palace was eerily quiet. Amara returned to her room alone. Kahlil was called away for another urgent meeting with military advisors. Layali's supporters were stirring rumors of rebellion. She bathed in silence, her skin tingling from the heat, from exhaustion, from fear. And then, something shattered outside her window. She rushed to look. A rock, a message tied to it. She untied the parchment with trembling hands. Leave before the year is over, or you'll leave in a shroud. No signature, no crest. Just the symbol of a serpent coiled around a crown, a warning, a threat. She clutched the note to her chest. They would not stop until they broke her. But she would not break. Because now it wasn't just about her. It was about the man who had chosen her over power, and the kingdom that might not be ready, but would learn to kneel before love. Whispers of rebellion. The threat under her window burned hotter than the desert sun. Amara held the note close, feeling the weight of its venom. A warning, a promise, a line drawn in the sand. She knew the palace was no longer just a place of gilded cages and whispered secrets. It was a battlefield, one where love was both weapon and target. Kahlil returned late that night, exhaustion etched into the sharp lines of his face. His eyes found hers immediately, dark pools of concern and something deeper, something raw. They're moving faster than I thought, he said quietly, closing the distance between them. Amara handed him the note. His fingers curled tightly around the parchment, knuckles white. They'll try to isolate you, he said, make you doubt yourself, make you vulnerable. She swallowed hard. I'm already there. He cupped her face gently. Then I will be your strength. For a moment, the world outside faded, but they both knew it was only a pause. The next days were a blur of whispered meetings, coded messages, and shadowed glances. Idris moved like a ghost through the palace, tracking rumours and allies. Sarah was still missing, but there were hints she was alive, hidden in the eastern quarter. Amara worked tirelessly, learning the languages and customs of the tribes. She practiced diplomacy, her voice firm yet compassionate, winning small victories with local leaders who once saw her as an outsider. Yet Layali's poisons spread relentlessly, every step forward met with sabotage, every ally tested by doubt. One evening, as the sun bled into twilight, Amara found herself alone in the garden, fingers trailing over the delicate petals of a white rose, the symbol of peace. A soft voice startled her. Beautiful. She turned to see Sarah. The maid's eyes were weary but fierce. "I thought you were gone." Sarah shook her head. "No. I had to disappear to stay alive. But I'm back. To help." Tears pricked Amara's eyes. Together they planned a new path forward, one that would unravel Layali's schemes and expose the shadows lurking beneath the palace walls. That night, Kahlil stood beside Amara on the balcony overlooking the dunes. "Tomorrow," he said, "we announce a new alliance with the desert tribes, a union not of blood but of loyalty and trust." She smiled, heart pounding. "This is our chance." He pulled her close, whispering, "We fight as one." But in the darkness behind them, unseen and silent, Layali watched. Her smile was a razor's edge, and the war was only just beginning. Flames beneath the desert moon. The announcement echoed through the palace like a thunderclap. A new alliance forged, not by blood but by trust. Amara stood beside Kahlil as tribal leaders gathered beneath the vast desert sky. Tents swayed softly in the night breeze, illuminated by flickering fires. The air smelled of earth and smoke, mingling with the subtle scent of jasmine from the oasis nearby. Her heart thrummed with a fierce pride and fragile hope. This was her home now. As Kahlil spoke, his voice commanding and steady, Amara watched the faces of those who once whispered against her. Some were skeptical, others curious. A few nodded, respect gleaming in their eyes. She stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering. "I am not here as an outsider. I am here because I choose to be. Because I believe in this land, its people, and in the future we can build together." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Layali's shadow lurked even here, in the form of a tall man with cold eyes who watched from the edge of the gathering. That night, as the camp settled under the desert moon, Amara and Kahlil retreated to a private tent. The flickering lantern light cast dancing shadows on their faces. He reached for her hand, fingers warm and sure. "Today, you were fearless," he whispered. She smiled, but there was weariness beneath it. "This is only the beginning." He pulled her close. "The desert tests all who walk it, but together we can withstand any storm." Their lips met, soft, slow, filled with promises yet unspoken. But as they surrendered to the quiet intimacy, outside the tent, footsteps approached. Layali appeared, flanked by 2 guards. Her eyes glinted with cruel satisfaction. "Enjoy your moment, little queen," she said softly. "Tomorrow, the real war begins." Kahlil rose instantly, shielding Amara. "Leave." Layali's smile widened. "Or what? You'll fight me." "I will." With a nod, she turned and vanished into the night. The palace and desert alike held their breath. Amara knew the path ahead was treacherous, filled with shadows, secrets, and sacrifice. But for the first time, she no longer felt alone. With Kahlil beside her, and a fierce fire burning in her soul, she was ready to face whatever came next, secrets unveiled in the night. The desert night was alive with whispers. Even beneath the vast canopy of stars, danger prowled. Amara couldn't sleep. The weight of the past weeks pressed on her chest like the heavy silk drapes around her bed. She rose silently, slipping into a loose robe, and moved through the palace halls, empty, save for shadows and secrets. Her footsteps led her to the library, where the faint glow of candlelight flickered behind the tall oak doors. Inside, Idris was waiting, hunched over a pile of dusty scrolls. "Amara," he whispered, startled but relieved. "I thought you slept." "I needed answers," she said softly. He nodded, spreading an ancient map across the table. "I've been investigating the forged contract. And the letter from your father. Her heart quickened. There's more, Idris continued. Documents hidden deep in the archives that could prove your father's innocence and expose who truly forged the deal. Who? That's the question. He leaned closer. There was a third party, someone with both motive and means, someone close to the royal family. Amara's breath hitched. Layali, Idris said grimly. She closed her eyes, the pieces clicking into place. Then we need proof, she said. And time, Idris replied. Layali moves fast. We must be faster. Later that night, Amara returned to her chambers, mind racing. As she passed a side corridor, a figure stepped out, silent as the shadows. Layali. You should rest, Layali said with a chilling smile. Amara squared her shoulders. And let you continue your schemes? Layali's eyes glittered. You're brave, foolishly so, but bravery without power is useless. Amara's voice was steady. Power is meaningless without justice. A tense silence. Layali turned on her heel and vanished into the darkness. The night pressed on, heavy with unspoken threats. But Amara felt a new fire rising within her. The fight was far from over, and she was ready to claim her destiny. Shadows of the past. The dawn brought no relief. Amara's mind was a whirlwind of secrets and half-truths. She met Idris in the hidden archives beneath the palace, a labyrinth of stone and dust where ancient scrolls whispered forgotten stories. Carefully, they searched through brittle documents, peeling back layers of history. Hours later, they found it. A letter hidden between pages of old treaties, written in a hurried hand. Signed by a man none dared name aloud. It revealed a conspiracy, a plan to forge the contract, pit families against each other, and seize control of the throne through deceit. Amara's breath caught. The true architect of her captivity was closer than she ever feared. As she and Idris pieced together the evidence, footsteps echoed. Kahlil entered quietly, his presence both comforting and commanding. She handed him the letter. His eyes darkened as he read, jaw tightening. So this is the poison in our blood, he murmured. We need to expose this before it's too late, Amara said firmly. He nodded. We will. Together. But as their alliance strengthened, so did the threats. That night, a fire broke out near the servants' quarters. Amara was woken by frantic shouts. She rushed outside to see guards battling flames licking the walls of the ancient building. Her heart pounded. Layali's warning was clear. The war for the throne was no longer hidden. It was burning bright. Flames of betrayal and bonds forged. The crackling fire tore through the night, smoke curling upward in angry plumes that stained the moonlight. Amara stood among the gathered crowd, the heat licking her skin, the scent of burning wood and fear thick in the air. Servants scrambled, trying to save what they could, while guards shouted orders, their faces grim and tense. Kahlil appeared at her side, his presence a solid anchor amid the chaos. His dark eyes scanned the scene, fury and protectiveness burning behind them. Is anyone hurt? Amara asked, voice steady despite the turmoil. A few injured but no fatalities, a breathless guard replied. We believe it was arson. Amara's blood ran cold. Layali's war had begun in earnest. In the aftermath, the palace was a fortress wrapped in suspicion. Trust was a rare currency, and every glance carried the weight of potential betrayal. Amara found herself locked away more often, the golden cage growing tighter. But she refused to be a prisoner of fear. Late one evening, Idris slipped into her chambers, his expression grave. We found a name, he whispered. Someone who has been funding Layali's plans from the shadows. Amara's heart pounded. Who? A merchant from a rival tribe, long thought neutral. He's been supplying weapons and money. Kahlil's fist slammed against the carved wooden table when Amara relayed the news later. We must act swiftly before this alliance fractures the kingdom. But even as they planned, the night held unexpected solace. Kahlil found Amara alone in the moon garden, the stars shimmering like distant fires above them. He stepped close, voice low and intimate. "You carry the weight of this palace on your shoulders, but you don't have to do it alone." She looked up into his eyes, vulnerability mixing with strength. "Sometimes," she admitted, "I'm scared. Not of them, of losing you." His hand brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. "I'm here," he promised. "Always." They shared a quiet moment, the tension momentarily easing into tenderness. But peace was fleeting. The next morning brought news of a rebel uprising in a nearby province, stirred by Layali's whispered promises and the merchant's gold. Kahlil prepared his forces, determination etched into every line of his face. Amara beside him felt the storm closing in. This war was no longer just about power, it was about survival, and about a love that refused to be broken. The edge of war, the heart's resolve. The palace was a cauldron of tension. News of the rebel uprising spread like wildfire, igniting fear and fury in equal measure. Couriers raced across the sandy roads, bearing urgent messages wrapped in wax seals. The once serene desert kingdom now bristled with the promise of conflict. Kahlil moved with the precision of a seasoned commander, gathering his trusted men in the war room. Maps sprawled across the table, marked with tribal borders and rebel positions. The low murmur of strategizing filled the space, punctuated by the occasional sharp command. Amara stood at the edge of the room, her heart pounding, not from fear, but determination. She was no longer the sheltered wife hidden behind palace walls. She was a player in this game of power and survival. "We must be careful," Idris warned, pointing to a cluster of villages near the eastern border. "These rebels have grown bolder. Layali's influence runs deep." Kahlil nodded, his dark eyes fixed on the map. "We will quell the uprising, but we must also win the hearts of those tribes. Violence alone won't secure peace." Amara stepped forward, voice steady. "Let me speak to them. Let me show them that our union is not a symbol of oppression, but of unity." Kahlil turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Are you certain?" She met his gaze without hesitation. More certain than ever. The following days were a whirlwind. Amara travelled with a small entourage, crossing the desert sands to meet the tribal elders. Her words were measured, her tone respectful but firm. She spoke of peace, of shared futures, of strength through unity. Some listened, others remained wary, but each meeting chipped away at the walls of suspicion. Back in the palace, Layali seethed, her plans unravelling, her power slipping like grains of sand through clenched fists. She convened with her merchant ally, plotting darker moves to destabilise the kingdom. One evening, as the sun dipped below the dunes, Amara returned to the palace, exhausted but hopeful. She found Kahlil waiting on the balcony, the desert breeze tousling his dark hair. He pulled her into a fierce embrace. "You were magnificent today." She smiled tiredly. "We still have a long road ahead." He brushed a kiss along her temple. "Then we walk it together, no matter the storms." As stars blinked awake overhead, a silent promise passed between them. A vow forged not just in love, but in fire and sacrifice. But deep in the shadows, a new threat stirred. A masked figure slipped through the palace corridors, carrying a dagger gleaming with deadly intent. Layali's war had only just begun. The silent threat. The palace was a maze of shadows and secrets. By day it glittered with gold and silk, but by night the walls whispered of betrayal. Amara felt the weight of unseen eyes tracking her every step. She moved carefully, alert to every sound, every breath. Kahlil was stretched thin, caught between the fires of rebellion and the poisoned arrows of court intrigue. One night, as Amara passed through a dimly lit corridor on her way to the gardens, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Before she could react, a gloved hand reached out, a dagger flashing in the candlelight. But a sudden, powerful grip seized her arm. "Careful!" Kahlil's voice was low but fierce behind her. He pulled her close, eyes scanning the darkness. "No one will harm you." That moment shattered the fragile calm. The threat was no longer hidden in whispers. It was tangible, deadly. Kahlil ordered increased security, guards stationed at every entrance, trusted men shadowing Amara's steps. Yet the tension only grew. Layali's influence had penetrated deeper than they feared. Amara refused to be paralyzed by fear. She met with Idris, poring over intelligence reports and intercepted messages. Each clue wove a tapestry of conspiracy, betrayal, and greed. Together, they began to unravel Layali's web. But the closer they came to the truth, the more dangerous their mission. One evening, a messenger arrived with a sealed letter. The script was elegant, chilling. "Withdraw or face the consequences." Amara met Kahlil's eyes, steady and unflinching. "We will not bow." He nodded. "Then we fight." Rising storms. The palace was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a battleground cloaked in opulence. Whispers of rebellion and betrayal simmered beneath every surface, threatening to explode. Kahlil and Amara met in the war room, surrounded by maps and reports. The glow of lanterns cast long shadows, mirroring the tension that thickened the air. "We must act swiftly," Kahlil said, voice edged with urgency. "Layali's allies grow bolder by the hour." Amara nodded, determination flaring in her eyes. "I will speak to the tribes again. They need to see our strength, not just our words." Idris handed her a sealed scroll. "This arrived today. Details of an assassination plot. The target, you." Her breath caught, but she refused to show fear. "We must expose this," she said firmly, "before more lives are lost." That night, Amara stood on the balcony, the desert wind teasing her hair as stars glittered above. Kahlil joined her silently, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Together," he whispered, "no matter what comes." Their bond was the kingdom's fragile heartbeat, a promise to endure, to fight, to love. But as the shadows deepened, Layali's plans reached their darkest crescendo. The war was far from over. Veils of deception. The palace never truly slept. Even in the dead of night, corridors hummed with secrets and shifting loyalties. Amara felt it in every step she took, the weight of unseen eyes, the whispers that chased her like ghosts. She was no stranger to danger now. Each day brought new challenges, new threats designed to break her spirit or shatter the fragile peace she and Kahlil fought to build. That evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, Amara attended a diplomatic banquet in the Grand Hall, a lavish display of wealth and power. Jewel-studded chandeliers cast sparkling light over silk-clad guests, tribal leaders, and foreign dignitaries. She moved with grace, her presence commanding attention. Yet beneath the polished surface, tension simmered like molten lava. Layali sat across the room, a venomous smile playing on her lips. She was flanked by her merchant ally and several silent guards, a reminder that the war was not just political, but personal. Midway through the evening, as Amara engaged in cautious conversation, a servant approached discreetly and slipped a folded note into her hand. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the parchment. The message was clear and chilling. "Your time is running out. The desert hides no secrets forever." Her heart skipped a beat, but she masked her fear with a steady breath. Kahlil noticed her sudden stillness and leaned in. "What is it?" She showed him the note. His jaw clenched. "We must be vigilant." After the banquet, in the quiet refuge of their chambers, Amara and Kahlil pored over intelligence reports from Idris. The web of Layali's influence was vast, hidden alliances, bribes, and whispered threats that stretched like dark veins through the kingdom. Amara's resolve hardened. "We can't let her win," she said firmly. Kahlil nodded. "Then we strike at the root." But Layali was not idle. That night, under the veil of darkness, a plan was set in motion, one that would shake the palace to its core and force Amara and Kahlil into a desperate battle for survival. The breaking point. The palace was cloaked in an uneasy silence that betrayed the storm gathering within its walls. Amara awoke to the sharp clang of metal against stone, the unmistakable sound of a palace guard's alarm. Rushing to the window, she saw flickering flames engulfing a wing of the royal stables. Horses whinnied in panic, their fear mirroring her own. Kahlil was already outside, commanding the firefighting efforts with the authority of a ruler who refused to lose his kingdom to chaos. In the aftermath, the palace was abuzz with rumours, whispers of sabotage, of plots aimed to dismantle their fragile hold on power. Layali's shadow loomed larger than ever. But the true blow came with news that struck like a dagger. A trusted advisor had betrayed them, leaking secrets to their enemies. Amara's breath caught. The walls they had built around their union were cracking. Desperation forced them into difficult choices. Kahlil summoned his council, declaring a state of emergency. Amara met with tribal leaders and emissaries, pleading for loyalty, for strength. Her voice rang clear, resonating beyond politics and power. "We stand together, or we fall apart." That night, in the privacy of their chambers, Kahlil pulled Amara close. His touch was both a comfort and a vow. "We will endure," he promised, "no matter the cost." Amara nodded, feeling the weight of a crown that was both a blessing and a burden. Their love had become their rebellion, their strength, their salvation. Shadows deepen, hearts entwined. The palace felt colder, even as the desert sun blazed outside. Whispers of betrayal had sown distrust like seeds in fertile ground, and no corner of the kingdom was immune. Amara walked the halls with renewed purpose, knowing every smile could hide a dagger, every greeting a mask. Kahlil was often away, commanding troops, negotiating with restless tribes, battling unseen enemies. But when he was near, their moments were fierce and precious, a refuge amid chaos. One evening, beneath the gilded arches of the palace courtyard, Kahlil took Amara's hands in his. "Whatever comes," he vowed, "we face it together." Her heart swelled. But peace was fragile. Layali's schemes escalated. She planted false accusations, twisted loyalties, and spread rumours that threatened to unravel everything. An anonymous letter arrived at Amara's door, a cruel reminder of the peril she faced. "You are a foreigner. You will never belong." Amara burned the note, resolve hardening like tempered steel. She would prove them wrong, for Kahlil, for herself, for the kingdom. That night, as stars blanketed the sky, Amara stood beside Kahlil on the balcony, their fingers intertwined. A silent promise passed between them. No matter the darkness ahead, their love would be the light. The battle within and beyond. The weight of the crown pressed heavily on Kahlil's shoulders, yet it was the burden in his heart that threatened to break him. The rebellion simmered like a restless beast just beyond the city gates, and within the palace, the walls closed in tighter with every whispered betrayal. Amara refused to be sidelined. She met daily with tribal leaders and council members, speaking not only of alliances but of shared futures. Her eloquence and fierce conviction began to turn tides, small victories in a sea of doubt. One afternoon, as the sun beat mercilessly over the dunes, Amara rode out with a delegation to a volatile border tribe. The journey was grueling, the desert relentless. But the sight of her foreign hands reaching out in peace stirred cautious hope among the desert warriors. She spoke to their leaders with honesty, sharing her own fears and dreams. Her voice, steady and sincere, cut through years of suspicion. Back in the palace, Layali's desperation grew. Her plots became more dangerous. Attempted sabotage, secret messages, even a failed poisoning. Each attack was a reminder that the palace was a battlefield, and love alone would not secure victory. That night, under the vast desert sky, Kahlil and Amara stood together on the balcony, watching the stars emerge like silent witnesses. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "We are tested, but not broken." She smiled, though exhaustion tugged at her features. "Our fight is far from over." Their lips met in a kiss both tender and fierce, a promise to endure whatever storms lay ahead. But beneath the palace, in the labyrinth of tunnels and hidden chambers, Layali and her allies prepared their final move, a plan that could shatter everything. The web tightens. The air inside the palace grew heavier, thick with tension and secrets. Every corner whispered of conspiracies, and trust had become a rare commodity. Amara moved cautiously, her every step measured, aware that danger lurked even in familiar halls. Layali's shadow stretched long and dark. Her network of spies and allies infiltrated the palace with terrifying precision. No meeting was safe, no message private. One night, Idris rushed into Amara's chambers, breathless and wide-eyed. "Layali has uncovered our plans," he warned. "They're moving against us, faster than we anticipated." Amara's heart pounded. "We must act now." Together with Kahlil and Idris, they devised a desperate strategy, a counterstrike designed not only to protect their reign, but to expose Layali's treachery to the entire kingdom. The plan required courage, cunning, and sacrifice. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the desert, Amara prepared herself. She was no longer the sheltered bride hidden behind palace walls. She was a queen ready to fight for her love, her family, and her future. The night exploded into chaos. Guards loyal to Layali attempted a coup, storming the throne room. But Kahlil's forces, forewarned, met them with steel and fire. Amara stood by Kahlil, her voice ringing out over the tumult. "This kingdom belongs to all of us." The battle was fierce, but the tide turned. Layali was captured, her webs unravelled. In the quiet aftermath, as dawn painted the sky with soft gold, Kahlil and Amara stood together. The kingdom was bruised but unbroken. Their love had been tested in fire and had emerged stronger, but the road ahead remained uncertain. For every shadow vanquished, another waited. Yet, in that moment, they held each other close, ready to face whatever came next. Dawn of a new era. The first light of dawn spilled across the palace, casting a soft glow over the scars of the night's battle. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and victory, mingled with the quiet hum of a kingdom holding its breath. Amara stood at the balcony, wrapped in a silken shawl, gazing out over the city waking beneath the desert sun. The streets buzzed with whispers, news of Layali's downfall spreading like wildfire. She felt a fragile peace settle within her, but the weight of responsibility pressed heavier than ever. Kahlil approached silently, his presence steady as always. He took her hand gently, a silent reassurance that they faced this new dawn together. "We've won a battle," he said softly, "but the war to heal this kingdom has just begun." Amara nodded, her gaze unwavering. "We'll rebuild. Together." The palace halls, once filled with shadows and secrets, began to breathe again. Allies who had been wary stepped forward, pledging loyalty and support. Amara threw herself into her new role, not just as the Sheikh's wife, but as a leader, a unifier. She worked alongside Kahlil to mend broken bonds, bridging divides between tribes and factions. But healing was not without its challenges. Some wounds ran deep, and old grievances lingered like desert storms on the horizon. One afternoon, a letter arrived bearing an unfamiliar seal, a summons to a tribal council far beyond the capital. Kahlil read it aloud. "It's a call for unity," he said thoughtfully. "An opportunity to strengthen alliances." Amara's heart quickened. This was their chance to secure a future beyond the palace walls. That evening, beneath a tapestry of stars, Amara and Kahlil prepared for the journey ahead. Their hands intertwined, they stood united, not just as husband and wife, but as partners destined to shape the fate of a kingdom. But far from the desert's edge, new eyes watched their every move. Unseen threats still lingered in the shadows. The story was far from over. The road to redemption. The journey to the tribal council was long and grueling, the caravan winding through endless dunes under a relentless sun. Yet with each passing mile, Amara felt a growing sense of purpose stirring within her. She sat beside Kahlil atop a richly adorned camel, their silhouettes casting long shadows on the golden sands. The caravan was a mosaic of diverse faces, warriors, elders, diplomats, each carrying the weight of history and hope. At the council grounds, a vast desert amphitheatre carved into the rocky cliffs, tribal leaders gathered in solemn assembly. The air buzzed with anticipation and tension. Amara stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. "We stand on the brink of a new era," she declared, "an era where tradition meets progress, where old wounds can heal, and where unity is strength." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd, but some faces remained guarded. Kahlil spoke next, his tone commanding yet sincere. "Our future depends on trust, on respect, and on the bonds we forge today." Throughout days of intense dialogue, debates, and negotiations, Amara and Kahlil worked tirelessly to bridge divides. Old rivalries surfaced, but so did newfound alliances. By the council's end, a pact was forged, a promise to stand together against threats both internal and external. That night, under a blanket of stars, Amara and Kahlil reflected on the journey. Their bond had deepened, not only as lovers, but as rulers bound by shared trials and triumphs. Yet, in the shadows beyond the campfire's glow, a figure watched silently. Layali's influence was not entirely extinguished. Her final move was yet to come. Destiny's embrace. The desert winds whispered ancient secrets as Amara and Kahlil rode side by side toward the capital, their hearts heavy with the weight of what had been and hopeful for what was to come. The kingdom awaited them transformed, a land bruised by conflict but united by courage and love. The final days had been a whirlwind of triumph and sacrifice. Layali's last desperate schemes had been uncovered and quelled, her influence shattered like glass beneath their resolve. The tribes now stood together, not as fractured pieces, but as one indomitable force. Back within the palace walls, beneath soaring arches and shimmering chandeliers, Amara was crowned not only as the Sheikh's wife, but as the queen of a new era, one defined by strength, compassion, and unyielding unity. Kahlil's gaze never left her, his pride and love shining brighter than any jewel. In that moment, as the sun cast golden light across the vast desert, Amara felt the chains of her past dissolve. She was no longer a forbidden bride trapped in a golden cage. She was the heart of a kingdom, the keeper of its future, and the woman who had conquered not only a throne, but a love that would endure forever. Hand in hand, Amara and Kahlil stepped forward into the light of their destiny, ready to face whatever challenges the horizon held, together, unbreakable and free. The end.